The company that said we have Night by Noble at home has released a new $12 plastic ocarina available on Amazon. This is the packaging it came in, a little bubble wrap envelope. Hopefully that's the only area where they cut costs. Today, we're reviewing the Aestivate 12-hole Alto C plastic ocarina. I got the white one. On my previous review of an Aestivate ocarina, my main view was that it was impressive for the price, and I didn't like that it was functionally a ripoff of the Night by Noble's design. This one is much more original looking, though it is a little suspiciously similar to the Bravura in terms of contours and in terms of its exact length. It is almost the exact same shape, though with some notable differences. In the box, or should I say in the bubble wrap envelope, you get a little plastic bag. This is where the ocarina came in, that has a tacky little rainbow neck strap thingy that would go in the neck strap hole right there. Gosh, this ocarina is really reflective to my bright white lights. In addition, you get a little carrying pouch, which I don't know why this is necessary. A plastic ocarina is theoretically supposed to be indestructible, so I guess all this would prevent is like scratches or nicks in the paint if this is painted, but it looks like it's just white plastic. In terms of build quality, it's fine. It feels durable, but there are very many little imperfections on it. First, you can see there's some little imperfections in terms of just the build of the plastic. There's a little bump there that's right on the mouthpiece that could cut you. There is a little bulge on the tip right there. And throughout the ocarina, let me turn off my lights entirely. There are some black markings like right on the mouthpiece there that sort of indicate imperfections in its design. I like the white color. I'm just a little disappointed with the basically lack of quality control in the overall build quality. Things I like about it though, I like that there's let me turn off my lights again. I like that there are indentations on your middle finger holes where you'll have the sub holes. So it makes it pretty easy to hold your fingers steady on these sub holes and like not lose your finger placement. I think that's a big plus. I think all plastic ocarinas should have something like that for ergonomics. It's really helpful for beginner players. So basically, other than some indications of poor quality control in its construction, I think the build quality is actually pretty good, especially for the price of $12. It's actually phenomenal for $12. For example, you could just like scratch off or, I just scratched off one of the protrusions to make it less outgoing. All right, in terms of ergonomics, it's good. The hole placement is all really natural. I really like the little indentations on the holes for your middle fingers to have easier sub-hole utility. And because it has almost the exact same shape as the Bravura, it has a pretty gentle angle for your wrists when holding it. One of the perks of transverse ocarinas is that the twisting of the wrist gives you better support of the instrument when you have fewer fingers on the instrument, compared to inlines where you kind of have to clamp it when you're doing no fingers on the holes. This one has the best of both worlds where your wrists are pretty gentle, yet you still have that supported hand placement when doing like your high F. I comment so much on wrist placement because I have had wrist injuries in the past that have been exacerbated by transverse ocarinas that require really intense wrist twisting, like the STL Ocarina of Time. I love that ocarina. It's affordable and it's a pretty good Ocarina of Time replica, but it has a really gnarly wrist angle for your hand placement. This one, very gentle. All of these points about build quality and what's in the box and its aesthetics and ergonomics, those are all moot points if it doesn't sound good. And you haven't heard that yet. I have though. So I'll play a few demos and let you know how I think it sounds. I got this ocarina a little over a week ago. I've been playing it a little bit every day. And overall, I think it is decent. I will play a quick scale and a couple arpeggios. In terms of breath pressure, this ocarina starts on a very low requirement. On the low notes, you have very low breath pressure. However, it has a really steep linear slope upward. As you play this ocarina and you ascend the scale, you require more and more breath. That's typical for very many ocarinas. However, on the highest notes of this ocarina, it is a really stark difference between the high notes and the low notes. The high F requires a lot of air, much more air than the Knight by Noble. The best way I can describe it is that on the low notes, this has a similar breath pressure requirement to the Knight by Noble, which is a low breath pressure ocarina, whereas on the high notes, this is more similar to the Bravura, which is a medium to high breath pressure ocarina. The breath curve does feel natural to play. The steep increase in air for the higher notes does not feel unnatural. It just takes a little getting used to. This ocarina is definitely in tune, but the biggest tuning challenge you'll have when playing it is when you descend from high notes to low notes in a relatively wide interval. If you're playing, for example, a high F in tune and you're dropping down, let's say, to an A or the lower F, then you'll need a huge drop off in air. Basically, if you're going up note by note, it feels totally natural, but it takes a bit of extra practice to get used to wider intervals and the breath pressure differences required for wider intervals. Using the Bravura, I'll show you what I mean in terms of the breath pressure for like the F going down to the lower F. Using the exact same breath pressure, this one will be sharp, whereas this one will be in tune doing that same interval. In those two examples, the low F, when I did the high F to the low F on this, was a little sharper. You can play it in tune, but it requires less air than you think you need. This is all to say the breath curve to play this ocarina in tune is very steep. You need a lot more air on the high notes than you might expect for an ocarina with more standard breath pressure. It's not something bad about this ocarina, it's just something you'll have to adapt to. So on that note of intervals being a challenge, I'll play a song with a bunch of intervals. Just a little interval at the end to spice it up. Considering this ocarina is very similar in shape to the Bravura, not a complete ripoff, but very similar, I'll use the Bravura for comparison. I think you can guess what my opinion is on the sound quality of this new $12 Aestivate. First off, it is completely decent. It's an in-tune ocarina with a predictable, albeit steep, breath curve. My issue with the sound quality is that it just feels like 10 to 15% less than other plastic ocarinas. And even though it's less than half the price, that 10 to 15% does make a really noticeable difference. It just sort of feels slightly thinner in terms of sound than something like the Bravura or the Knight by Noble, which have much fuller, stronger sounds in terms of their tone quality. But for $12, I am really impressed with the sound quality of this Aestivate ocarina. And on that note, do I recommend this ocarina? Yeah, it's in frame. In a vacuum, do I love this ocarina? No, I think it's decent at best. However, for $12, I think it's actually a really good deal. Would I recommend this for like a concert-ready performance ocarina, an ocarina that you buy day one and you continue playing day 1000? Absolutely not. However, if you only have $12 to spend and you're curious about learning the ocarina and you want an instrument that's in tune and has a decent sound and because it's in tune, you can't blame the instrument for your mistakes. It's decent. I think this is a perfect ocarina for beginners for the sake of education and learning, but not performing. The reasons I say it's not good enough for performing are twofold. First of all, remember how I mentioned how there are a lot of seeming quality control issues with like the little nicks and protrusions on the plastic? That indicates to me that there may be other quality control issues with this ocarina. Because there are quality control issues, the ocarina that I got might actually be one of their higher quality ones, and this is just a decent ocarina, not even a high quality ocarina. The quality control issues that your model might have worse tuning, or a different breath curve, or airier notes. So I can't wholeheartedly recommend it for performing, and I can't wholeheartedly recommend it for even learning to play the ocarina. However, it's a plastic ocarina. Quality control issues usually have pretty narrow band of standard deviations. So even if your ocarina is like 20% worse than the one that I got, it'll probably still be in tune. It might be a little bit airier, and it might not have quite as good of a tone quality. But the important thing for an ocarina that you learn on is that it is in tune, and you can transfer the skills from that ocarina to whatever your next more quote-unquote serious ocarina is. So what's my verdict? In good faith, I could only recommend this if this is your very first ocarina. If you already have any other reputable plastic ocarina, this will not be an upgrade. I have some ethical qualms about this being so similar in shape to the Focalink Bravura, but it does have a unique identity thanks to having some major differences in its build, such as the indentations on the middle finger holes. This ocarina is decent, it's in tune, and if it's your very first ocarina, it will more than suffice for you to learn the instrument on. However, I would still urge you to just save $20 more and get something far more reputable that will last with you for the long term, like the Bravura or the Knight by Noble. I'm really just unwilling to let go of this ocarina, it seems. I had to grab these awkwardly by the mouthpiece. What am I doing? While I would recommend that you save your money for something like the Knight by Noble or Bravura, $12 is impossible to beat for an in-tune plastic ocarina. If this is your first ocarina and you only have $12, go for it and subscribe. And if you do end up buying any ocarina that I recommend, whether that's the Aestivate for your $12 budget or the much higher quality Knight by Noble or Bravura, I have affiliate links in the description. Those are the easiest way to support the channel. They don't cost you any extra, and I get a cut of whatever you buy. Use code ANDY10 for 10% off at Songbird, and otherwise, if you buy on Amazon, I just get a little percentage of that. No extra cost to you. It is the easiest way to support the channel. You don't spend any extra money, and you get an ocarina. Wahoo! Otherwise, it does feel good to get back into doing ocarina reviews. If you've made it this far, sorry, I don't make the rules. You have to subscribe now. And if you're already subscribed, then you have to like the video now. And if you've already subscribed and liked the video, then you have to, I don't know, go tell someone that you missed them. Happy tootin'!